do we have enough women's economic empowerment initiatives that can be implemented strategically to promote gender equality? Yavi Madurai, Executive Director at Pan-African Business Women's Association, and Nobesuthu Jabu, who's a Program Coordinator at Business Women's Association South Africa, join me now to talk more about this. Good evening, and thank you so much for your time tonight. Let's just begin with you, Nobesuthu. Certainly, I still can, I don't believe that in 2020 we're still having a conversation around, equality, around the fact that women need to have access to equal opportunities as men.
Yeah, me too. And I can echo the same. I mean, it's been 22 years since the 16 days, even the 16 days program has been around in the country, but we're still talking about inequalities, and it looks like we're not winning.
And Yavi, if I can, also bring you into this, because certainly we cannot have this conversation without really looking at the fact that it's been 22 years, 16 days has been launched, but we still, as women, are talking about the fact that we are fighting to have even access, even economic emancipation, even equal opportunity to our male counterparts.
And I think, so before COVID, we were 100 and some odd years behind gender equality according to the United Nations and various reports. After COVID, as in, the economic impact and what has happened, all impact, not just economic, we're now 200 plus years away from gender equality. So that puts into perspective how far we are away. We won't even see the beginnings of it in our lifetime, but that doesn't mean we can't start.
Certainly, it doesn't mean that we can't continue to keep pushing, especially because when you look at how COVID-19, as you say, has ravaged women, certainly it doesn't look like there's an understanding of just how bad COVID-19 has been for women, does it?
No, it doesn't. And Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka of UN Women Executive Director, she calls it, and obviously now it's become like a term that we use in terms of it being the shadow pandemic. And when she speaks about Build Back Better, there's this constant, messaging and understanding around when we start to recover in whatever way we choose to recover. We've got to not just necessarily fix the past, but we've got to truly focus on what does that mean to be better than we ever could be as we build and as we recover. And we've got to focus on that. And women like Nobesuthu, like you, like me, like all of the other women around us, we've got to pick it up. We've got to pick up the mantle and say, we have to do this. Government creates policies. All governments across the continent, in the world, create policies. We should not have an expectation, we should, but we shouldn't have an expectation that they're going to fix all of it. We've got to, drive it from our perspective.
And Nobesuthu, something that Yavi is touching on here is the importance of policy and how policy is then drafted. But certainly we do know that the implementation really remains a problem and it remains a challenge. How do we overcome this impediment as women to ensure that we're not relying on policies that are created to continue being drafted and not being implemented, especially at a level at which we can see physical and tangible change?
I think what we also need to do as women, because monitoring of these policies is needed. Evaluating of these policies and monitoring that women, there are opportunities that are created for women everywhere. Policies are there and they are clearly stating what needs to be done, but they are not implemented, or if they are implemented, they are not implemented effectively. So as women, we need to be in the forefront of ensuring that these policies are implemented. We need to participate even when these policies are being drafted. We need also to ensure that we own them, not just they mustn't just be on the paper, but we must own them as women and create opportunities for ourselves and protect one another in ensuring that these policies are implemented. Because of course, yes, there are policies, but the implementation is not effective.
And Nobesuthu, when you look at what the minister had to say, Minister Maitengwana Mashabane, when she was launching this year's 16 Days of Activism campaign, she said that economic emancipation is important. as recent statistics reveal that half of the women died in the hands of those who claim to love them. Certainly, it's important for women to be emancipated, but at the same time, how then do we begin to have this conversation of emancipation and to see its tangible fruit around emancipation, especially in an era where gender-based violence is alarmingly a problem for many women?
I think where we should start is to empowering women through information. Many women have ideas that can be translated to businesses that can bring income for them. But some, they are sitting there without even knowing. So we need to start as, like what we are doing as Business Women's Association. We are creating platforms where we bring women together and we bring information to them, so that they can be able to register their businesses, register their cooperatives, because these opportunities are there, but problem is women don't have this information. So we need to create those platforms. And again, we need, as women, we need to do it, ourselves. We need to create opportunities for other women, open doors. If you are one woman in a boardroom that is full of men, you should definitely question that, and you should not relax.
And Yavi, talking about the boardroom and access to information, we're still finding more and more women in the corporate space, either doing more work than their male counterparts who are occupying the same positions and getting paid less.
The gender pay gap is something that is, unfortunately, it is something that is a plague throughout the world. Africa and South Africa, in particular, it impacts us more because of the inequality in different spaces. I want to throw a number at you. Anywhere between 24, in 2017 this is, anywhere between 24 and 40 billion rand is the figure in terms of what gender-based violence / femicide costs our economy. So let's translate that back into what does that mean? That's costing us money. And if you break that down, it comes down to things like women are more productive but not necessarily being paid enough. So the gender pay gap is but one aspect. Husbands want 47% of husbands across the continent want their wives home by a certain time in order to do family responsibilities, and this is just across the continent. 7% demand sexual aspects in terms of you want to be that big person out there, but here you are mine, so to speak. So this is at levels that, the short interview is it has so many different dynamics to it that we need to look at it in all different ways. When we talk about creating those opportunities for women, one of the biggest things is that women are sometimes the perpetrators of patriarchy. So women are sometimes the ones that want to be the only woman at the boardroom table and not have any other women around. There's the whole bitch factor, I don't want to see you progress. So we've got our own issues to deal with as women around it and our sisterhood issues. So there's and I'm not even naming, I've just named a few. There's all these other things that we have to be able to overcome when we look at it from an economic empowerment perspective. From an Africa aspect, we've got one of the biggest things happening in our continent's history, hands down, which is the AfCFTA, free trade area that goes live on the 1st of January. Within the context of that, there are harassment, corruption, intimidation from a cross-border perspective that women have to deal with, which by default then removes them out of the economic agenda that the AfCFTA is supposed to benefit Africans. So, I've just given you a whole lot, but, if we start to really connect the dots, we realize that it's not just about gender equality, it's not just about economic empowerment. There's all these little things and these kind of on the peripheral that now need to start to be considered, and we need to start from the bottom. It doesn't have to always be, these big strategies and whatever else. From the bottom, we need to start. It's about saying, come with me to that meeting. I'm the only one there. Come with me to that meeting. Or I may not like you. You and I may not get on. But if you are being, the I'm speaking scenario, I need to be able to say, she is speaking, can we please give her a hearing? I may not like you, but it's these kind of things that will start to tick away, and we just need to keep on nudging it. How do you eat an elephant, as they say?
Yep. And Nobusutu, what Yavi is saying is quite important, starting from the bottom, not even starting with big strategies. You talk about the fact that, women are expected to be home at a certain time and for them to either cook, be with their families and all of that. But at the same time, these are the same women that are trying to climb the corporate ladder, that have got so many deliverables placed on them, yet there's not even a creche where they work, where their children can be able to be with them. So they're able to help them, to see their children and be able to take care of them even during their lunch breaks.
I think for me, we definitely need to challenge cultures and practices that perpetuate these gender inequalities. Because who said that a man cannot cook for their children? But I think the system of patriarchy has made it in a way that there are certain responsibilities that are only for women in a home setup, which is why that if you are in a meeting, you must rush home to take care of the kids. Whereas your husband is there at home, sitting, reading a newspaper. I think we need to start having these conversations around gender inequalities and challenge the cultures. We've been always doing things like this, but that needs to be challenged.
And you talk
because I can.
Pardon, you can continue, Nobisut.
As much as I can be at home cooking, nurturing children, I am also capable enough to compete in a boardroom full of men.
And it is that guilt then that makes it difficult for a woman to then climb the corporate ladder, especially when they're looking at the fact that people are saying to her, you are failing, your home is falling apart. Then therefore it excludes her from benefiting economically into the system that should be helping her go higher up.
Yes, and the home to be falling apart, it's not only the responsibility of a woman. I mean, both partners should equally be responsible for ensuring that the home is functional. While the other one is in the boardroom, be it the wife or the husband, the other one is able to take care of children, vice versa. So it should not only be blamed on children, on women.
And Yavi, when you look at, of course, programs that could then be helping women to be able to get, higher up. I mean, the president was talking recently about generation equality, a transformative agenda that is to help women to access better opportunities, to be able to access equal opportunities to their male counterparts. Are we having enough of these? Or, as Nobesutu said earlier on, is it because there is no access to information that women are not knowing about these particular initiatives?
So, yes and no, kind of a scenario. So when you look at it, there can never be enough information, but by the same token, that information can become white noise. So it becomes very important. One of the biggest things that we found from a Pabwa perspective in doing, having conversations, surveys, and those kind of things, is that communication and information is not available. Yet there is so much information available. So it comes down to, if you look at a woman's time, availability to go and search and look and find that information, that is actually quite a big deal. You don't really think about it, but it's actually quite a big deal. So to cut to the chase, when you look at it, one of the biggest things that we have to learn to do is make information available at the touch of a button, first of all. Secondly, in places that women don't have to go looking for it. The third aspect of it is, and that's where the media comes in, the media have a responsibility in some shape or form to provide that information, but they need to understand it. So one of the things that we are doing from a Pabwa perspective is that we're creating a media fellowship around things like, especially now with the AFCFTA, and nobody understands it, but we do. We've been running around with it for the past year. So we're creating an AFCFTA media fellowship in order to educate the media so that when the media put their information out, they know what this information is about, what they're actually talking about. It's not just a cut and paste scenario. They actually understand the impact of it, etc., etc., etc. The other thing is to be, and Nombasutu highlighted it earlier, is to be able to have spaces and places, online, physical world, where women can share their businesses. Because like the trade agenda that's coming in on the 1st of January, it's actually going to benefit women more than anyone else, because 70% of Africa is the informal sector. And before you think that the informal sector is only, go on the side of the road with maguinias, it's the freelance makeup artists, it's the freelance graphic designers. These are all parts of the informal sector. So we need to be able to give places, spaces, online world, physical world, to these people. That's one of the other aspects that we're launching, is an e-trade marketplace. So it's these kind of things that we need to be able to provide to women in order for them to find it at the touch of a button. It mustn't be that they take 2 hours to find something.
Interesting. I wish we had more time. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Certainly do appreciate this conversation, and it does look like we need to have another one to unpack yet another layer of this particular conversation, because I tell you, we were only still scratching the surface. That was Yavi Madurai, Executive Director at Pan African Business Women's Association, and Nombasutu Javu, Program Coordinator at Business Women's Association South Africa.